I always thought betrayal would come like a thunderclap, loud, explosive, impossible to ignore. But when I discovered my wife cheating on me with our gardener, it was quiet, almost mundane. A slow, creeping rot that had been there all along, hiding just beneath the surface. It started with little things. Small details that, on their own, meant nothing. Vanessa, my wife, started dressing up more, even when she wasn't going anywhere. She suddenly took a deep interest in gardening, despite never so much as watering a plant before. And then there was the way she talked to Miguel, our gardener, her voice just a little softer, a little sweeter. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining it. After all, Miguel was just a worker. A guy in his mid-20s, tanned from working under the sun, polite but distant. I had hired him to maintain the lawn and trim the hedges, not wreck my marriage. But suspicion has a way of sinking its claws in. It started keeping me up at night. So, I did what any man would do when faced with the possibility of being played for a fool. I started paying attention. That's when I saw it. The way she smiled at him. The way she'd brush imaginary lint off his shirt when she thought I wasn't looking. The way Miguel would glance around, like he was checking to see if the coast was clear. Still, I had no proof. Nothing solid. Until one day, I came home early. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My gut twisted as I stepped inside. I walked past the kitchen, past the living room, and toward the back where the sliding door led to the garden. And there they were. Not in our bedroom. Not even in the guest room. No, Vanessa had the audacity to do it outside, right on the lounge chair by the pool, in broad daylight. Her sundress was hiked up, Miguel's shirt was off, and their bodies were tangled together in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was cold. A kind of stillness that made my own heartbeat sound foreign in my ears. Vanessa saw me first. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Miguel scrambled off her like a scalded dog, his hands shaking as he fumbled for his shirt. And that's when the rage hit. Miguel bolted like a coward, barely getting his shirt over his head before sprinting toward the garden gate. I heard the latch click as he disappeared, leaving his shoes behind like some pathetic Cinderella. Vanessa, on the other hand, didn't move. She sat there, knees drawn up, pulling her sundress down over her thighs like that would erase what I had just seen. For a moment, she just stared at me. Then she had the audacity to scoff. "Oh, don't look at me like that," she muttered. That was it. That was her reaction. Not guilt. Not shame. Just annoyance. Like I had walked in on her having a private phone call instead of getting railed by the guy I paid to mow my lawn. "Are you serious?" My voice was calmer than I expected. Too calm. It was like I was outside my own body, watching myself from above. Vanessa rolled her eyes and stood up, brushing non-existent dirt off her dress. "What? You want me to cry? To beg? Please. Don't be so dramatic." I should have yelled. I should have broken something, thrown her clothes in the pool, done something. But all I could do was stare at this woman, the woman I had loved, married, and built a life with, and realize I didn't know her at all. "How long?" I finally asked. She sighed like I was boring her. "A few months." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. "Why?" At that, she actually laughed. A short, sharp laugh with no humor in it. "Are you really asking me that?" She tilted her head, folding her arms. "You think you're some perfect husband? You barely even look at me anymore. You work late, you forget things, you're just there. So you decided to fuck the gardener?" She smirked. I needed something. I didn't even recognize the person standing in front of me anymore. This wasn't my wife. This was someone else, someone cruel and different and completely unfazed by what she had done. I inhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay in control. "I want you out," I said. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. You heard me. Pack your shit and get out." She scoffed again, shaking her head. "I'm not going anywhere." I let out a dry laugh. "Oh, you will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure every single person we know finds out exactly what kind of woman you are." That got her attention. Her expression flickered, just for a second, but I saw it. A crack in her armor. "You wouldn't. Try me." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had the upper hand. Vanessa had spent months sneaking around, acting like she was untouchable. But now? Now she knew what it felt like to be cornered. But what she said next caught me completely off guard. She smirked. "You're not as smart as you think, babe." Then she walked inside, her hips swaying like she hadn't just torched our marriage beyond repair. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty garden gate where Miguel had fled. My own breathing was the only sound I could hear, steady but forced, like I had to remind myself not to explode. Then, I turned and followed Vanessa into the house. She was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine like she had just finished a long day of work instead of getting caught screwing another man in our backyard. She didn't even look at me as she took a sip. I walked right up to her, close enough to see the smug little smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "What the hell did you mean by that?" I asked. She swirled the wine in her glass lazily, her nails tapping against the stem. "Mean by what?" I clenched my jaw. "Don't play dumb. You said I'm not as smart as I think." "What does that mean?" Finally, she turned to face me. And the way she looked at me, it wasn't fear, or regret, or even anger. It was amusement. "I mean," she said, dragging out the words like she was enjoying every second, "that you might want to think twice before making demands." I narrowed my eyes. "You're bluffing." She took another slow sip, then smiled. "Am I?" I could feel my pulse in my temples. "Spit it out, Vanessa." She set her glass down and leaned against the counter, arms crossed over her chest. "Fine. You want to know? Let's talk about your little secrets." I blinked. "What the hell are you talking about?" She let out a low, mocking laugh. "Oh, come on. You really think I haven't noticed? The late nights, the weekend work trips, the way you're glued to your phone? You act like you're so innocent, but I wonder what I'd find if I went through your messages." I stared at her, my mind racing. Was she serious? Was she just trying to flip this on me, or did she actually think I was cheating? Vanessa leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a purr. "What would I find, HM? Just work emails? Or something juicier?" I wanted to laugh in her face. There was nothing to find. I had never cheated, never even thought about it. But that wasn't the point, was it? She didn't need proof, she just needed doubt. And I realized, with a sinking feeling, that she wasn't bluffing. She was setting something up. "You're insane," I muttered. She shrugged. "Maybe. But if I were you, I'd be careful about throwing around accusations. Because if you want to make this ugly..." She picked up her wine glass again, her eyes locking onto mine. "I promise you, I can make it uglier." I exhaled slowly, trying to rein in the pure hatred boiling in my chest. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was war. And she had just fired the first shot. I had always thought that if my wife ever cheated, she'd at least have the decency to act guilty. Maybe cry. Maybe beg for forgiveness. Something. But Vanessa? She was standing in our kitchen, sipping wine, smirking like she had just outplayed me in some twisted game. And that was when I realized something: she didn't just betray me. She enjoyed it. I took a step back, needing to put distance between us before I did something I'd regret. My hands were clenched into fists, my breathing steady but forced. She watched me, her head tilting slightly. "Ah, you look mad." I exhaled through my nose. "You don't have a single ounce of shame, do you?" She shrugged. "Shame is for people who care what others think." And honestly, she took another sip. "I don't care what you think anymore." Something in me snapped. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to end this. I pulled my phone from my pocket and, without breaking eye contact, started dialing. Her smirk faltered. "Who are you calling?" "My lawyer," I said flatly. She blinked. Then, suddenly, she laughed. Like I had just told her the funniest joke in the world. "Oh my God," she gasped between giggles. "You actually think you're kicking me out? That's adorable." I didn't react. I let the phone ring, let her think she had control for just a little longer. Then she hit me with it. "This house." She gestured around. "It's mine." My grip tightened around the phone. "We bought it together." She grinned. "With my parents' money." The line clicked as my lawyer's assistant answered, but I barely heard them. The blood was rushing too fast in my ears. Vanessa leaned in slightly, dropping her voice to a whisper. "And guess what, sweetheart? That means you're the one who has to leave." For a moment, I just stood there, gripping my phone so tightly I thought it might snap in half. My lawyer's assistant was still on the line, waiting for me to say something, but I couldn't. My brain was stuck, replaying Vanessa's smug little declaration over and over. This house is mine. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was playing dirty, setting up her next move before I even had a chance to react. I forced myself to breathe. Then, in the calmest voice I could muster, I said into the phone, "I need to schedule a meeting. Urgently." Vanessa snorted, taking another sip of her wine. "Oh, please. You're wasting your time." I ignored her. The assistant gave me a time for tomorrow morning, and I hung up. Then, I turned to my wife, no, ex-wife, as far as I was concerned, and studied her. She was too comfortable, too sure of herself. "You think you've got this all figured out, don't you?" I asked. She smiled. "I know I do." I took a slow step toward her, keeping my voice steady. "You really think I'm just going to pack my bags and let you in?" "Oh, sweetheart." She set her glass down and leaned against the counter, tilting her head mockingly. "You already lost." I wanted to rip that smug expression right off her face. But instead, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Because in that moment, I knew. She was overplaying her hand. She thought she had everything in the bag, that I was just going to roll over and accept whatever twisted game she was playing. But she had forgotten one crucial thing. I wasn't stupid. I leaned in just slightly, keeping my voice low. We'll see about that. Her smile flickered. Just for a second. And that's when I knew Vanessa had no idea what was coming next. Vanessa's smirk didn't last long. Not when I pulled out my second phone. The one she didn't know about. Her confidence flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. What's that? She asked, her voice a little less smug now. I unlocked the screen, turned it toward her, and pressed play. The video started with a clear shot of her, standing in our backyard, leaning against Miguel, running her fingers through his hair. And then, the part that mattered. Her voice. My husband? He's pathetic. He wouldn't even know what to do if he found out. Honestly, I wish he would, at least then I'd get to see some actual emotion from him. Her eyes went wide. I tilted my head. Still feeling like a winner, Vanessa? She lunged for the phone. I pulled it back. Where did you get that? She demanded. I smiled. You're not the only one who knows how to plan ahead. The truth? I had been suspicious for weeks. And when things didn't add up, I did what any smart man would do. I got proof. A few well-placed security cameras. A voice recorder hidden in the outdoor furniture. And now? I had everything I needed. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then, finally, she laughed. But this time, it wasn't cocky, it was forced. So what? You think a little video is going to save you? You really think a lawyer is going to care about some backyard flirting? I shrugged. Maybe not. Then, I swiped to the next file. This one was inside the house. Miguel. Shirtless. Vanessa pulling him toward the couch. The color drained from her face. I locked the phone and slid it into my pocket. You were saying? For the first time since this nightmare started, she looked nervous. She was the one scrambling. I took a slow step toward her. Now, Vanessa, let's talk about how this is really going to go. Vanessa's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The smugness? Gone. The arrogance? Evaporated. What was left was something closer to panic, though she was trying hard to hide it. She crossed her arms, lifting her chin. You think this scares me? I smirked. No. But it should. Her eyes flicked toward my pocket where the phone was. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out her next move. But I wasn't giving her time to think. I'm going to make this easy for you, I said, stepping closer. You pack your things and leave. Today. No fight, no games. You walk out quietly. She scoffed, but I could hear the slight waver in her voice. And if I don't? I smiled. Then I send the video to everyone. Your parents. Your friends. Hell, maybe even post it online. Imagine how they'd react, knowing their precious Vanessa threw away her marriage for the gardener. She swallowed. Better. I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough to twist the knife. You spent so much time trying to make me look like a fool. But now? You're the one who's going to look pathetic. Her breathing picked up, her fingers curling into fists. You wouldn't dare. I pulled out my phone and pretended to scroll. Guess we'll find out. She snapped. In a blur, she lunged at me, trying to snatch the phone from my hands. But she was too desperate, too sloppy. I stepped back, and she nearly stumbled forward. I laughed. Pathetic. Her face twisted with rage. You bastard. Oh, there she is, I said, pocketing the phone again. I was wondering when you'd drop the act. She stood there, breathing hard, fist clenched, trying to regain control. But it was over. I had control now, and she knew it. I sighed dramatically. Listen, Vanessa. You could fight me on this. You could try to play the victim. But we both know how that'll go. She glared at me, but she said nothing. So, I continued, crossing my arms. What's it gonna be? You walk out of here with some dignity? Or do I make sure everyone sees what kind of woman you really are? Her lip curled. Her mind was racing. And then, finally, she broke. Fine, she spat. I'll go. Victory. But as she turned and stormed off toward the stairs, I had the strangest feeling. Something told me this wasn't over. Not yet. Vanessa stomped up the stairs, her nails digging into the banister as she disappeared into our bedroom. A few seconds later, I heard drawers slamming, hangers rattling, the unmistakable sound of her stuffing clothes into a suitcase. Good. I exhaled, letting some of the tension leave my body. I had won. I had forced her hand. She was leaving, and I wouldn't have to see her smug face in my house again. But something felt off. I didn't trust her. Not for a second. So I followed. I walked up the stairs, slow and steady, keeping my footsteps light. When I reached the bedroom door, I pushed it open without knocking. Vanessa was standing by the closet, holding her phone to her ear. The second she saw me, she flinched. Then she smiled. Yeah, she said into the phone, her eyes locked onto mine. Just come to the house. Now. My stomach dropped. She hung up, tossing her phone onto the bed like it was nothing. I narrowed my eyes. Who was that? She picked up a shirt, folded it slowly, too casually. Oh, you'll see. A slow, burning anger started creeping back up my spine. Vanessa, what the hell are you up to? She let out a low, amused hum. Did you really think I'd just leave? I clenched my jaw. That was the deal. She turned to face me fully, arms crossed, a victorious smirk creeping across her lips. Your deal. Not mine. And that's when I heard it. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway. My chest tightened. I stepped toward the window, pulling back the curtain just in time to see Miguel, the gardener. And he wasn't alone. A second car pulled up right behind him. Someone else stepped out. A man in a suit. Vanessa's lawyer. A sickening realization crashed over me like a wave. Vanessa wasn't just leaving. She was making her next move. I let the curtain fall back into place, my fists tightening at my sides. Vanessa leaned against the dresser, her arms crossed, watching me with a look of pure satisfaction. You didn't really think you were the only one who could play dirty, did you? She purred. I ignored her and turned back toward the window. Miguel was already halfway up the driveway, his shoulders squared like he actually thought he was walking into his house. The man in the suit, Vanessa's lawyer, no doubt, followed right behind him, adjusting his tie like he had just walked into a business meeting instead of the aftermath of an affair. I could feel my pulse pounding in my temples, but I forced myself to stay calm. Stay in control. I turned back to Vanessa. What exactly is your plan here? She tilted her head mockingly. Simple. You're the one leaving, not me. I let out a slow breath, keeping my expression neutral. You really think some second-rate lawyer and a guy who trims hedges are going to make that happen? She grinned. Oh, I know they are. Footsteps echoed from downstairs, 2 sets, slow and deliberate. Then, a voice called out. Mr. Carter? I didn't answer. Instead, I kept my eyes locked on Vanessa. She smiled. That's your cue. I said nothing. I just walked past her, my shoulder just brushing hers as I made my way downstairs. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of looking rattled. When I reached the bottom step, Miguel and the lawyer were already standing in my living room like they owned the place. Miguel had that smug, arrogant stance, chest puffed out, arms folded. But I could see the way his fingers twitched slightly. He was nervous. Good. The lawyer, on the other hand, was pure business. He adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, my name is Daniel Mercer. I represent Vanessa Carter in these proceedings. I forced a smile. Oh, good. I was just thinking I needed a clown for entertainment. The lawyer didn't react, but Miguel? His jaw tightened. Vanessa stepped up beside me, her voice dripping with false sympathy. You should hear him out, babe. It'll make everything easier. I turned to her. If you call me babe one more time, I swear to God. Daniel Mercer cut in. Let's keep things civil. I turned back to him, taking a slow step forward. Fine. You came all this way. Let's hear it. Mercer nodded, flipping open his briefcase. Vanessa has filed an emergency motion for exclusive occupancy of the home. I let out a sharp laugh. Exclusive occupancy? Based on what? She is claiming emotional distress and concerns for her safety. I blinked. Then, I looked at Vanessa. Are you serious? She had the nerve to put on a fake sad expression. I just don't feel safe here anymore. Not after how angry you got. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. You cheated on me, Vanessa. She let out a fake little sigh. And your temper has been so volatile ever since. Miguel smirked. I wanted to knock it right off his face. Mercer cleared his throat. If you refuse to leave voluntarily, we will take this to court. I stared at him. And if I don't leave? Vanessa answered for him. Then we get a restraining order. I inhaled deeply. These bastards were setting me up. She was painting herself as a victim, trying to force me out of my own damn house. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I wasn't sure if I could win. I had known Vanessa was capable of being cruel. I had seen her be selfish. But this was calculated. This was evil. Miguel, that smug bastard, stood there like he had already won. The lawyer kept his professional, blank stare, but Vanessa? She was enjoying this. She wanted me gone. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. I couldn't let them see that they had rattled me. If I exploded, if I raised my voice, even for a second, it would prove their little lie. It would give them exactly what they needed. I turned to Mercer. You do realize that she's lying, right? The lawyer shrugged, adjusting his tie. My job isn't to determine the truth, Mr. Carter. It's to represent my client's interests. Of course, the kind of man who would sell his integrity for a paycheck. I turned to Vanessa. You really think you can pull this off? She pouted. Fake sympathy. Oh, honey, I already have. I exhaled through my nose, forcing myself to stay calm. You want me out of this house? Fine. I turned toward the front door, ignoring the smug look on Vanessa's face. But before I left, I paused. Then I smiled. A slow, knowing smile. Enjoy it while you can, I said. Because you have no idea what's coming next. Vanessa's expression flickered. Just for a second. Miguel shifted uncomfortably. Good. I turned the doorknob, pulled the door open, and stepped outside. But I wasn't leaving for good. Not even close. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I walked out of that house without another word. But the second I got in my car, I felt it. The burning rage clawing at my chest, screaming at me to turn around and destroy everything in my path. But I couldn't. That's exactly what Vanessa wanted. She was banking on me losing control, on me giving her the proof she needed to make her little victim act believable. No, I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I gripped the steering wheel, forcing myself to breathe. I wasn't retreating. I was reloading. The first stop I made was my lawyer's office. I walked in, sat down across from him, and laid everything out. Vanessa's lies, her attempt to force me out, the emergency motion, everything. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. She played dirty, he admitted. But she made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, he smirked. She filed for exclusive occupancy, based on emotional distress. But she didn't file a police report. No record of domestic abuse, no actual evidence of harm. That makes it weak. I exhaled slowly, feeling some of the tension leave my body. So we can fight it? Not just fight it, he said. We can flip it on her. Now, that got my attention. He leaned forward. We're going to hit her where it hurts, her reputation. I listened carefully as he laid out the plan. First, we were going to challenge the emergency motion. File a counterclaim stating that Vanessa was using deception to take over the house. Second, we were going to leak the evidence I had, strategically. Not just to the courts, but to her parents, her friends, and anyone else whose opinion she actually cared about. And third, we were going to drag Miguel into this. You have proof she cheated, my lawyer said. And I'm willing to bet Miguel doesn't want to get tangled up in legal battles. We pressure him. He folds. I grinned. I like this plan. He smirked. Then let's get to work. This wasn't just about taking back what was mine. This was about destroying Vanessa's little fantasy before she even had a chance to enjoy it. She wanted war. She was about to get one. The next week was brutal. But it was worth it. Vanessa thought she had won. Thought she had me backed into a corner. But she underestimated just how far I was willing to go to take everything back. And when the hammer finally dropped, she never saw it coming. The first strike. My lawyer moved fast. He filed the counterclaim against Vanessa's emergency motion, arguing that she had used deception to take control of the house. Since there was zero evidence of abuse or emotional distress, the judge wasn't impressed. Then, I played my ace, the videos. Not just the backyard footage, but all of it. The recording of Vanessa bragging about how clueless I was. The video of Miguel pulling her onto the couch. The proof that she had been screwing around for months while pretending to be some victim. The judge took one look at it and immediately denied her request for exclusive occupancy. Just like that, I had my house back. The second strike. Vanessa lost it. She screamed in the courtroom, called me every name in the book, even had the nerve to act shocked that I had been recording her. Her lawyer? He looked like he wanted to disappear. But I wasn't done yet. Before she even had time to process her loss, her parents got the video. See, Vanessa's parents were old school. Strict, traditional, obsessed with appearances. And when they saw their precious daughter rolling around with the gardener like a desperate housewife cliché, they cut her off completely. No more financial support. No more backup plan. Nothing. She tried calling them, begging, crying, screaming. But they didn't even pick up the phone. The final blow. Miguel folded fast. Turns out, he had a wife, and she had no idea he was screwing Vanessa. But when she found out, oh, she made sure he suffered. I heard through the grapevine that she threw him out, froze his bank accounts, and was already preparing to take everything in the divorce. Meanwhile, Miguel stopped showing up at Vanessa's house. He stopped answering her calls. He vanished. Which meant that after everything she did, after burning our marriage to the ground, after betraying me in the worst way possible, Vanessa was completely alone. No house. No money. No lover. Just her. The aftermath. I moved back into my house that same week. Changed the locks. Had a cleaning crew come in to erase every last trace of her. And Vanessa? She texted. She called. She even showed up once, pounding on the door, screaming about how I had ruined her life. I didn't answer. She was already ruining her own life long before I stepped in. I just made sure she couldn't drag me down with her. 1 year later. Looking back now, I don't regret a single thing. Vanessa played a stupid game. And in the end, she lost everything. As for me, I won. And it was glorious.